You know, I don't know if
You
you
missed
know
all of
that.
that.
Of course, we were friends with everybody. It was a
Really?
small village. There was not one hotel in Bellaria. There was one pensione in
Uh-huh.
34. That was all. So the owner of the barber was the brother of the guy who owned the food store, and the mother needed an operation. So they came to my mother and they said they needed so much money. And my mother didn't have that much money. She said, the only thing I have is a few pieces of jewelry. So she gave them the jewelry. They took the jewelry to Imola, to come si chiama?
Banco dei Pegni.
Marco dei Pegni. And
pawnbroker.
after we moved away from Bellaria to Torino, after a few months, the barber came by train and brought back the jewelry to my mother.
Oh,
So-
nice.
And everybody, you know, when Yvonne found out about my mother having done that, you can imagine Yvonne.
Yeah, again.
But everybody said, you are crazy, you will never see your jewelry again.
So can you go back to the guy who was carried on the shoulders? Can you tell me that? I didn't hear it. The man who came back and was carried on the shoulders, why was he in jail?
Because he had deserted in the First World War. He had been a deserter and had been condemned by the military. And he had escaped and they gave him more years. And then he escaped again and he was out only in 1934.
L'avevano tenuto in 16 anni, quanto? Quindi
18.
18 a 34.
Al 34. Long time. Just, you know.
In tempo per farsene un'altra.
What?
In tempo per farne un'altra.
Sì.
Già. Yes.
Right? Poor thing.
Yeah.
Almost. I don't know how old he
So
was.
you went from this town to Torino.
Yes.
Why?
Because somebody said that they were offering a job to Yvonne.
So
And they-
so you were 12 when you arrived.
And Yvonne was 18.
And were you in school?
And how
still?
long-
How
how-
did you
When I went to
Yeah.
Torino, I went to school.
in Bellaria? Were you?
No,
in
no.
school?
No, it
Yeah.
was summer.
Yeah.
From May to September, I was.
Oh, so
not
can you
there.
tell me? I didn't hear the story of the bathroom. What was the story of the bathroom?
Where were you?
My grandmother
Oh,
didn't have a
university.
bathroom, so she went and bought a toilet and had a
Where
toilet
did you go
installed.
to? Where did she go? In no, in
In Rimini.
Rimini.
In Rimini.
So your grandmother lived in Bellaria?
She
No,
also
family.
she also had rented a fisher house.
And what grandmother are we talking about? There could have been
Granny's
three.
mother.
Really?
Granny's mother. No, she lived in Domodossola.
There could have been three
No,
grandmothers.
you're right.
So she went with you to Torino?
What?
When you went to Torino, she went with you?
She moved to Torino too, but not with us. She had her own apartment.
No.
I want to hear about Torino, but I also want to go back 10 years, I think.
And she was 2.
Well, or 5 to 10 years. So when you were in Germany,
Yes.
you weren't living with your mother the whole time.
That's
Mhm,
right.
mhm.
So who were you living with?
I lived with my stepfather's mother. Sister, what am I saying?
Not Beppo, but Ludwig.
Yeah, Ludwig Bäumer's sister.
Ludwig Bäumer's sister.
Who was married to a Müller, who had a factory, who produced the machines for Continental to make the car, rubber
That's
tires.
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 He made he had the factory which
Use
produced
the machinery.
The
for
tires.
the
producing it.
machinery.
Oh, the
yes.
machine.
And
And how old were you when you went to live with your?
4.5.
Okay.
Or,
4.5.
almost 5.
and
your aunt.
Why you didn't
Yvonne?
stay with your mother?
Mhm. Yeah.
Because she was, because my stepfather was very sick. He was always in and out of the hospitals. And so they they sent away my brother Yvonne to Italy, to Granny, and then they sent away me to live with.
Granny
There were no
was
other
Ludwig's.
children.
Well, there was Giorgio.
George.
But
Yeah.
Yvonne had been sent to Italy earlier, before.
Yes, before me.
Okay.
Yes.
How old was he when he was sent to Italy?
I think he was 10.
And so, how long were you living apart from your brothers and sisters and your mother?
Well, I always saw them in the summer. We spent the summers together.
Okay.
But from when I was 5 to 11,
Oh.
6 years.
And
So then, when you moved back to Italy, was Yvonne kind of the interpreter for everyone? Was he the one who
Yes,
understood Italian
Yes.
culture?
yes,
And,
yes,
yeah.
yes, yes.
Mhm.
But you know, in Bellaria, there was the same as in Varigotti, same story as with Cecina. There was one woman who had a lover, and he married another woman. And so there was always this, you know, that they couldn't see each other. Well, one day, my grandmother looked out of the window and she saw it in the come si dice, vialetto dietro
the alley.
in the alley. The ex-woman met this young man, and she pulled out a razor and she cut him like this. And
In Bellaria è successo di tutto.
and my grandmother was horrified,
Mm.
and she screamed for Alma and Irma. She had two ladies in waiting from Valvigezzo, from Domodossola. And so she said, oh, I saw that. So Alma immediately took the bicycle and rode, I don't know where, I don't think to Rimini, there must have been another village in between. Well, the whole village was in uproar. They were running and screaming.
The guy was
Oh yeah,
bleeding.
bleeding.
So
Well, but somebody took care of him, but you know, the whole village was in uproar. And then, suddenly, far away on this road, you saw two carabinieri coming. Just, yeah, with that, just walking. The carabinieri, it was like mice. By the time the carabinieri entered Bellaria, there was not a soul in the whole village. Everything was closed up.
Well,
So-
before we go to Torino,
One thing, can you clarify for me, how big was Bellaria? I can't
Like
really get a
Varigotti?
concept. A
Like
couple-
Varigotti?
like
Yeah.
Varigotti, hundreds of people? Under 1,000?
Oh yes, under
Well under 1,000.
Oh yes, under 1,000.
And
Tiny.
right on the beach like Varigotti?
Yes, but the back is very near to the hills.
like
Yeah,
Marigotti.
Varigotti.
Yeah, the same. Except that Rimini and Bellaria have the vineyards behind them.
Okay.
Yeah, they have
Like, yeah.
Before you take us to Torino,
yes.
can you tell us why this is like Cecina?
What did I say? Well, because there was a woman in Varigotti who was very much in love with Gianni. So when Gianni married Cecina, come si chiamava? Giuse.
Giuse.
Giuse was very jealous, and she attacked Gianni one day too.
not with the razor.
Not with a
No.
razor, but
And she never ever married.
yes.
Did she did?
Of course, darling, she married. She is the owner of the hotel. She married the Swiss guy. L'albergo davanti al negozio. Davanti a Sebastiano.
Meari?
Yeah. E della Giuse.
E della
E
Giuse?
della Giuse.
Allora no, allora mi confondo. Allora chi è quella che invece che era zoppa? Non era anche lei innamorata di Gianni?
La povera Ciaccia.
Ah, non era anche lei innamorata di Gianni?
Sì.
Ah, no, sì, ok.
No,
Ok,
but
la
that's-
Ciaccia, povera Ciaccia.
But Chacha probably loved him after.
After he married Cecina.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
Yeah.
And how much younger was Chacha than Gianni and Cicina?
Oh, not so much.
Not so much.
Not so much.
But there's another story.
Aye.
There's another story that you know the story about Chacha's mother. Chacha's mother. They lived in the same pensione where we live.
Now, imagine that all these Pettegolezze come from a village of 50 people.
Yeah.
So this is kind of like, what's the story that the Italian priest, you know, the stories of the Italian priest in southern Italy? Don Camillo.
Don Camillo.
Ah,
These are like the Don Camillo stories. I love it.
that was Emilia Romagna. It's like a big
No, rispondi a questa domanda, poi te ne faccio io una.
So anyhow, they were going to, the vacations were over. They were supposed to go back to Milan.
Who is this?
The mother of this
Chacha.
girl she is talking
The mother
about.
of Chacha.
The mother of Chacha, who of course was much older than my brother Ivan, but notwithstanding that.
We know Ivan.
This is an Ivan story. We could, now we need to transgress it a bit, but yes, please.
So anyhow, I don't know how much she contributed, but this poor lady was very much. So what did she do? She put the house keys or the keys to the, I don't know what, or the keys to the suitcase into the suitcase so that she could not leave with her husband to go back to Milan the next day for some reason, because she did something with the keys. I don't remember what. And the story was that, you know, she wanted to have at least one
Night with
one
Ivan.
night with Ivan. But my brother Ivan, in Domodossola, he went into the girls' dormitory of Rosmini's when he was 14 years old.
The dormitory of what?
Of the girls' dormitory of the school.
The Rosmini were an order of
14.
An order of
priests.
nuns
Yeah.
and priests.
He was 14.
He was 14.
Well, I don't know if I want you to tell us about Torino or Ivan now, but you had a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Dove l'hai conosciuta Cicina?
Oh,
That's a bit.
we went in 1934 to Torino. The next summer, my mother said, we have to go
On vacation.
on vacation. So she and one of the two ladies in waiting of my granny,
Is Alma.
Irma and Alma,
Irma.
and she took a train from Torino to the Riviera, and they got off in Noli, and my mother, and then they walked all the way from Noli to and when they came to Marigotti, they saw these houses built on the beach. And my mother said, this is exactly what I wanted. And so they, at that time, it was very easy, there weren't any. Almost the only, come si dice, bagnanti.
Well, the tourists.
What?
People on the beach?
Yeah,
Some, yeah.
the only tourists were the family of Cicina. And they had been there already in 1932.
And
years
they were
before.
a royal family, Bourguignons or something. Bourbon, and I don't know, you had some funny...
Borbonese.
Borbonese.
Bourguignon è bellissimo.
Borbonese, but no, darling, the Borboneses weren't. But Cicina's mother was a countess, which is incredible because she was not a very countess-like.
No. Not at all.
What?
Not at all.
Yeah, you knew her? You remember her?
No, but neither was Cicina. That's
Yeah.
what I mean.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No. Cicina is nothing of.
No.
No. No. Yeah.
So, as we were talking about Ivan, and then we were talking about Alma, do we want to go on with that story?
What did I do with Alma?
No, Alma and Ivan.
Irma.
Irma. Oh, Irma and Ivan. Yes, sorry.
Yeah, Alma and Irma erano
You didn't know about Alma and Ivan?
Sorelle.
Ah, sorelle.
Due sorelle.
Yeah. Che non si somigliavano per Niente.
No, Irma era bionda.
No, no, ma una era bella tondina, l'altra era così, tipo così. E io le ho conosciute, vabbè, avevano già 50 anni e passa, figurati, però...
Beh,
La sorella
Irma,
della nonna.
No,
Handmaidens.
dame di compagnia.
erano sorelle. Dice le sorelle.
Erano
Non
sorelle tra di
erano
loro.
sorelle
Tra di loro,
Ah, dicevo.
Ed erano le dame
No,
di
no,
compagnia
sorelle
della,
tra di loro.
della
Ho capito,
bisnonna.
Mm.
E la povera Irma,
and my grandmother only spoke French with them. She taught them French, and she only spoke French with them. Yeah.
really? Why not English? No. Okay.
What?
Why not English?
Non ho capito.
Why not English?
Because French is more.
I don't know. I really don't know. Yeah.
So you go to Torino?
What?
You go to Torino? You go to school?
Yes. And I went to in a French boarding school, and the nuns were very impressed with me because I.
No,
Oggi è il primo giorno che sono senza
Cirotta.
bella. Primo giorno.
Ti proprio sfraganata.
Sì. Because not knowing Italian, of course I behaved very well. I couldn't talk. So,
Which is, I mean, that was not your, would not have been your nature, let's
but,
say that.
but in the second semester,
She learned.
so, okay, once a week there was a big ceremony. The direct, you know what the directress of the school was? She was the sister of Generale Cadorna.
Generale
La
Cadorna.
contessa.
Wow.
The General Cadorna was the one who was the head of the Italian army in the First World War.
Very famous. Even
Very
in the
famous.
history book you
And-
learn about Generale Cadorna.
And his
Tu
sister.
scherzi o davvero?
No,
No,
è
è vero,
vero.
è vero.
Very famous.
Sì,
In Italy,
ci sono
of
anche
course.
tutte le
And
vie.
his sister was the head nun of the Adoration. And
Adoration.
once a week,
Che cos'è l'adoration?
This French school.
the
suore
Adoration
nuns.
of Jesus Christ, Adoration du Sacré-Cœur. It's a famous prep school
Still
in
there.
France and
Still there
also
today.
Germany and in Italy. And once a week we all had to go into this huge, it was an old building, and there was this huge saal, and then they would read the names of the ones who had some merits, and we would get
A ribbon?
yeah.
Sort of, yeah.
A sash.
Not a light blue one, a yellow one, or tutto attorcigliato.
A cord.
And then after, if you kept it every week, you could or lose it or
Yeah,
or
keep it.
accumulate,
Yeah, we did it in elementary
or
school.
accumulate,
We had
you
the
know.
stars.
So every week I got it.
Wow!
But then the
got
second
first
semester, no more. And I have a picture somewhere with Yvonne, with me standing there and Yvonne holding this thing like this with, this funny face that we used to make. I don't remember. Did you meet Yvonne?
Mhm.
You did meet
Oh, yeah.
Yvonne. He was quite a character.
Yes, he
huh?
was.
What?
Wonderful.
Did
And
you?
the long-suffering Tata Ping.
Oh, poor thing.
Did I meet her? I don't think
Sua
so.
moglie.
Oh, sì.
Ivan.
Tatapin è un
When
nome.
did
Ping.
she die?
She died
Ivan's
seven-
Ping.
No,
Ivan's
that I
wife.
did
6
not.
or
I
7.
didn't meet her.
something
You didn't
like
meet
that.
her?
No.
No, she did.
Oh.
So la sua moglie si chiamava Pina.
Yes.
Giuseppina.
È
Detta
stato
Ping.
sposato 2 volte.
What?
No, una.
Una volta.
Tante donne,
Yeah.
una marita.
Una marita.
Che bellino!
Didn't he remind you of, come si chiama l'attore che la fotografia con la Patricia? Che-
She reminds me of Jack Nicholson.
Yeah.
Oh, Jack
Bravo,
Nicholson. Brava
bravo.
Patricia.
Absolutely.
Doesn't he remind you of Jack Nicholson?
A tiny bit.
Absolutely.
La foto in una foto
con Patricia. C'è
Ti
una
faccio
foto con
vedere una
Patricia.
fotografia.
Fermati.
A te.
Ma io non
Ah,
conosco
no.
nessuno. Ah!
E
Piccola.
quello è-
Ah, ok. Alright.
Yes!
E quella
Ah, quella
Patricia.
foto con la Patricia.
Ma ci sono?
Ma io pensavo che Patricia
Jack
avesse
Nicholson.
avuto un
E anch'io
foto
avevo
con
l'attore con la
l'attore.
Patricia. E io.
Non l'ho
Like him
capita.
as well.
Really?
Ma come l'hai detto prima, sembrava che Patricia avesse una foto con un attore
no,
in
no,
braccio
no.
al papà.
Comunque sembra Jack Nicholson.
No, no, questo non è il papà di
No, lo
Patricia.
zio.
Lo zio.
Prozio.
Prozio.
Can you
È
show
il
us?
fratello del nonno.
Oh, sorry.
Show the picture.
Prozio.
And who's this?
Patricia.
relative here? Patricia.
Prozio.
The person
Eh sì, era il
dietro,
fratello del
behind,
nonno.
No, the baby.
Fratello.
Patricia.
that's Patricia. That's Patricia. Yeah.
Okay, so next, I want to know when the first time you went to Varigoti was.
In
that?
35.
In 35. While you're
Yes.
living in Torino, for the summer you went to.
What?
For the summer you went from Torino to Varigoti.
That's right.
And how did you choose to go to Varigoti?
Tra
Because
finale
my,
Ligure lo
my,
sai.
Sì.
E subito prima
Yeah.
di finale Ligure venendo.
my,
Yeah, because
my
mare, anzi, adesso
train
è mare.
in
L'unico
Orly,
paese della
walked
riviera
and saw
lì che
Okay.
all
ah,
Okay.
il paese vecchio
How did you meet?
in mezzo
How
alla
did you
regna.
meet Cicina?
Well,
Se no
that
tutto il resto del
was
paese
the only
dopo
girl
tutti gli
there.
altri paesi che venivano
Apart
dopo
from,
la spiaggia, la strada, quello che invece quello
apart from the
The
girls
girl
from the
niente,
village.
Same
anche
age.
della testa.
2 years younger. She's 2 years younger.
Did you meet Gianni then?
What?
Did you meet Gianni as a child?
No, I don't. No.
So
No.
you lived separately from the fishermen. You did not know the old people in the village? Because Cicina,
Yes, we did. I did know many of the people in the old village, but Johnny was always with the merchant marines. He was.
but you were 12, 13,
Yeah.
14. He was a child same time you were.
Was he from Varigotti?
He was from Varigoti.
You are
And
right,
Cicina told
you're
me that the
right,
first
you're
time
right.
she met him, it was after the first time his ship had been sunk.
After the war, I met him for the first time.
No, she said she met him for the first time during the war.
She met him for the first time during the war. That's
How's
right.
that possible?
We're talking in 34, Gianni probably was a couple of years older than her.
But
I
Okay, so it was
believe.
in
So he was
school,
already
during the war, he
14.
certainly was old.
Beh, ma-
6 years later, he was 20. He was
Before the war, you
when
were
the war was.
Sì, 12 and 6, we are in 1940. So
And
they
he's
are
probably a
18,
couple
yeah.
of years older than she was.
So
So
maybe she was 18 and
Yeah.
he was 20.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yes.
What was
Or
that?
Franco.
Cicina was first
Cicina-
the lover of
Cicina
Johnny's
was
brother
first the
before.
lover of,
Oh my
of
God.
Johnny's brother.
Ah, non so.
That's why her mother-in-law hated her, couldn't stand her.
And then what happened? She said, no, I prefer your brother.
Well, it was no problem for Franco.
No, for her. How she? For Franco, il fratello?
Yeah,
Was no problem?
it was no
So he
problem.
didn't
He was
care
he
about
was
her.
younger than Cicina, and
He
it
didn't
was
care.
it was nothing very serious.
But Cicina told me a story of maybe it was the second time he had been torpedoed in a boat.
Yeah.
She met him. He was a merchant marine, and he had almost died at sea twice. That the Germans had torpedoed his ship, and all of his.
the German.
Well, who else would torpedo him?
Well, Italy was
Yeah, that doesn't
allied
make
with the
sense, though,
Germans.
does
Not the Germans, the Allies had torpedoed.
The Allies
Yeah,
torpedoed
yeah.
him.
Yeah, that
As a
was-
okay. I don't know, but
And we were the better
Access
ones,
to
you
the
know.
Allies.
but he was like the only person to survive twice,
Well,
basically.
almost.
Wow.
But he had a scar here of the fingers of a man who had tried to hold on to him. Ooh.
And so she said when she met him, he was. I mean, when we met him, he was like Charles Bronson. He was the epitome of machismo.
Yeah.
But she said when she met him, he was a crying Hulk.
I can imagine.
Mhm.
He looked very much like Charles Bronson, in more handsome. He was very handsome. Yeah.
So he did not look very much like.
What?
So he did not look so much like Charles Bronson.
You
I cannot imagine Charles Bronson handsome.
Yeah.
You cannot imagine
Charles Bronson handsome.
Oh,
I
And then
really
they had
can't.
Massimo.
well, first she had another baby. She had another baby who died within a week. Her husband spent day and night, the whole week with this baby. And he died, yeah.
They found a funny story now.
Oh yes,
A
then
funny
funny story. No.
Well, I mean, now we're talking about the despair of World War II, so it's going to get very funny if we keep going now. I mean, so let's get to the funny parts, Yvonne.
Alright, well, before we delve into all of that, one of my favorite stories about Garigoti is about the old fountain.
Oh,
Can you tell that story?
the story that I got is very funny because the houses are from the Saracen period. There's walls like this.
And when is,
But for
wait,
instance-
Yvonne, when is the Seraphim period?
What?
When is the Seraphim period?
Saracen.
Saracen.
1100. The
Saraceni.
Yeah.
so the North
We're talking
African
about
North African pirates invading the coast of Italy.
1100s?
I would say
I think so.
Yeah. I
Prima
think
del
even I
1900.
think so.
But I think that's when these houses date from.
Intorno al Novecento.
But for instance,
in Spagna cosa non
you know, you
No, hai ragione.
there are houses which, well,
facciamo vedere una
That-
prendere una
where-
foto di
where
Baricotti.
people try to make a little niche in the wall, and but on the other side they were working on there too, you know. And then the stories about you cannot have a windows because it's under protection of the Belle Arti. So they did all sorts of funny things. But anyhow, right on the beach there was a Roman, un pozzo romano,
Roman fountain. Roman what?
a Roman well.
Well,
Well,
posto.
Oh,
Is
veramente
Baricotti?
Yeah.
È veramente sulla. Fai vedere la telecamera.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yes, Baricotti.
Beautiful.
È bellissimo. Io quando dormivo in quella stanza mi guardavo sempre questa foto.
Mamma mia, sembra una
Bellissimo.
scenografia di un film.
So then somebody
There
wanted
is a
to,
tower here.
yeah, lo chiamano il castello.
Ma guarda che strane piante.
E questo è il fratello di Ciccina, che è andato lì è Cicci,
What?
Un altro
si chiama
fratello.
Cicci. E
Ah, il
lui
fratello di Ciccina
Sì.
ha piantato.
non l'ha piantato, è andato in spiaggia, l'ha tenuto così, questo.
Yvonne, ce n'è uno qua, uno qua, uno qua, uno qua.
Ah, scusa, hai ragione,
What is that? Questa è una vegetazione locale.
ma io non
strano.
ricordo queste
Io non
palme,
mi
Queste palmette.
una sulla
Ah
spiaggia.
no, quelle le hanno messe lì di bellezza.
Non sono vere.
No, I mean they are real, but they were put there for some
Oh,
by somebody for
Yeah, because I
you know.
never saw something like
No,
that.
they are not there anymore. I can tell you that.
yeah. So what
Okay.
was I
Keep
saying?
going.
The
I'm sorry.
fountain.
The
fountain.
The well.
The
The
Oh.
Roman well.
So they wanted to build something there, and you know this pozzo was in the way. So everybody, you know, going by a little bit. In 30 years they destroyed it. Well, I don't know how many years it took them, but they destroyed the pozzo.
Well,
So they
and-
go by with a little knife and scrape it or
Yeah,
whatever.
everybody.
And I don't know if I remember this really or not, but the town was built adjacent to the Via Aurelia, to an old Roman
Yes.
road.
Yes.
And when they were digging part of the tunnel, they were widening the tunnel in the Via
Yes.
Aurelia. While we were there one summer,
Yes.
they had to stop construction because they found, and I believe that we saw this, they found a Roman sword.
Oh, wow.
Ok. Una
A
spada.
sword.
Ah, wow.
A lot. I remember when they were digging in the village somewhere, but in the very few first years, that one of the men found some Roman coins, and he gave either to me or to my mother. He gave us 2 coins.
Oh
Who
wow!
knows what happened to
Questo è
them?
il
Who
No,
knows?
cosa hai bisogno? Non ho capito.
Amazing.
Stai dormendo nello
nello
studio?
No, no. Lei non me lo so.
What?
No, nothing. It was the computer.
Well, it's funny how 30 years later the Varigottini were a little bit more concerned about the beauty of
With whom?
the beauty of their little village, because some 30 years later they wanted to put a telephone booth in the piazzetta. Okay, and so the whole village was
Up in arms.
up in arms against this thing that would have ruined, the whole
Atmosphere.
piazzetta, which is I don't know how many centuries old. Okay, and so well, nothing doing because Varigotti is under finale decides, and so one day they bring this telephone booth in the piazzetta, but they don't still connect it. They just leave it there, and so the next day, the telephone booth was at the extreme point of the pier. You know? Overnight, people from Varigotti. It's amazing that they didn't throw it in
the water.
the water. They couldn't, right?
That's their point.
Yeah.
Some famous painters have lived in Varigotti. Especially in the years before it became.
Io non avevo mai sentito Varigotti prima di conoscere Yvonne.
No.
Non avevo mai sentito Varigotti.
Loro sono dall'altra parte.
Never.
Cioè, quindi Varigotti è dall'altra parte rispetto alle Cinque Terre.
Sì. Più verso la Tirrenia. E dopo sono, sì. Well, we have some famous people.
But your friend Kathy loved it too, huh?
Varigotti.
She
C'è
liked
un
it.
sacco di gente allo spettacolo che viene adesso.
Ah, sì?
Sì. Cioè, io non lo so come lo dicono, ma non ci
So it's a
vado una vita.
famous
Adesso sì,
summer
evidentemente.
vacation.
Nonostante sia piccolo,
pensa a te.
non può costruire niente,
Vabbè,
Per fortuna.
esclusivo. Quello perché è esclusivo, non ci possono andare tutti.
Well, Giuse,
Yeah.
the one
Yeah.
who married
Yeah, okay.
the Swiss guy and is the owner of the hotel,
Mm-hmm.
she used to sell, when she was 5 years old, on the beach, she used to sell the fish, which they had just fished, and she didn't have any shoes. She was always barefoot.
La figlia di
Ma
pescatore.
la Giuse, quando tu dici l'hotel di fronte a Sebastiano, you mean the old Sebastiano, il vecchio Sebastiano? O il nuovo Sebastiano?
Non so dove era il vecchio Sebastiano.
Okay, are you talking about the hotel in the old village or in the new village?
The old village, di fronte alla strada che viene giù. Quell'albergo lì.
So from Cicina's house, as you enter the old village, the first building on the right.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's now an old folks home or something.
Yeah, it's not a hotel anymore.
Sì,
Right.
tesoro. E l'hanno appena ridipinto tutto rosso, tutto.
It's apartments, isn't it? Or maybe it is a
Ma
hotel.
no.
It's a hotel last time I was
Okay,
there,
a
but
hotel.
Non
At the first
giù
building.
alveari, di qua,
First
vicino
on the Via Aurelia.
Cucina.
On the Via Aurelia.
On the Via Aurelia, yes.
So as
La
you
Giara?
Eh?
Non la Giara. Guarda, le hotel sono c'è la Giara e c'è il Saraceno e that's it, non c'è più
C'è
niente.
il Saraceno.
E poi dopo il Saraceno sono tutti appartamenti.
La Giara sarà.
Ma no,
Io non ci sono
Ma
più in terra.
più in là.
C'è la pensione liliana, no, come si chiama quella? No,
La
però più
pensione.
in là,
Scusa, c'è un albergo.
dopo il
Sulla
Saraceno.
via
Dopo il
Aurelia.
Saraceno c'è il garage del Saraceno.
Poi c'è la latteria,
C'è
quella
la-
che era la latteria una volta, che adesso c'è il bar.
Sì, e poi c'è l'albergo.
Ma non è più un albergo, Yvonne, sono tutti appartamenti quelli
Ma
lì.
no.
Ma yeah!
Okay,
Okay, never mind.
so I would like to hear a story about the antiquarian and the ring. There are several stories of the antiquarian I want to hear, but your friend, who you always hung out with on the beach,
Antiquarian.
Oh,
who had lost her ring,
who had lost?
her ring, and the antiquarian told her years later that she would find it in her clothes.
Oh, lui parla del... Yes, he's talking about, non so se loro lo sanno, il famoso, come si
Italy's
dice?
Uri
No,
Geller.
mago,
Mago?
sì.
Silvan.
Yuri,
Silvan.
Silvan.
Eh?
Silvan, che ne
No,
so?
no,
Udini.
ma no.
Udini.
No, il mago.
Quello che aveva un negozio di antiquariato anche.
Mago Zurri.
E quello famoso che dipingeva solo con gli occhi.
sai che Ira è molto più giovane di te. You would not have met this man.
Era
Uri
con gli
Geller.
occhi.
No,
No, un Yuri Geller italiano.
Uroghelli è italiano.
No.
No, dei
I'm saying,
No, he's the one with the spoon.
yes.
The Italian version of.
Well, but the Italian version is much
so
more.
cute.
So I want to hear 2 or 3 of his stories. So the first one, what's the name of your
The
friend?
first, ma dai,
Ma
è
dai.
famosissimo
Sarà
io.
Ma dai, era per piacere, ricordatelo. Io non
Tell the stories and the name will come to you.
Well, the most he became very famous because
At the casino?
what was the name, Ira, of the actress in Wuthering Heights?
The actress. I have no idea.
Tu lo sai. È famosissima attrice.
Dr. Google, it's on your telephone.
Yeah, right, really, thank you.
No, non lo sai. Anyhow, she was in a hotel in Cannes with her lover, and her lover,
The Carlton Hotel.
what?
The Carlton Hotel.
Probably.
I mean, the most famous in Cannes.
Her lover was a very famous prince from Venice. C'è una fondazione famosissima veneziana, il principe. Okay.
Ma non,
And
non si viene.
and so they were talking, and he said he was going to leave the next day with his plane to go somewhere. And this guy comincia con una P. Madonna santa.
Un mago.
Un mago.
Ma sì, un mago.
It'll come.
P is already come.
Please come.
Anyhow, he went to her and said to her, "Don't let him leave." And she said to him, she said to him, you know, if this guy said you should not leave, and he laughed. And the next day, she went to the airport with him, and the plane took off and fell down, and he was killed.
Il mago.
No,
No, il
No,
principe.
Ah, il principe, il
Questo
mago gli aveva detto di
principe-
non
Ah, il
partire.
principe.
Il
Questo
sì,
principe
ma
che
questo
mago
principe,
era.
ma è famosissima questa fondazione.
Ma io
Veneta.
penso di questo nome non mi viene.
Pinarelli.
Stiamo parlando, di che anni stiamo parlando? Che ne so.
No, ma se è una fondazione veneziana esiste ancora.
Del principe.
No, quello era
Non
il
del
principe,
mago.
no.
Ah no, il mago P non lo sappiamo.
You also told a story about him meeting a man at a casino who was down on his luck.
Yeah, he did all sorts of things, yes. After the war, there for a short while there was a casino in the hills of Torino. And he went with two other gentlemen from Torino to play. And they parked the car and then they had to walk in questo viale che andava verso questa villa. And it was dark already. And they were walking and he said, wait just a minute. And he walked a few steps into the bushes. Who is that?
Actress in Wuthering Heights?
No.
No?
No.
Go on.
Sorry.
Well, there is more than one version.
Merle Oberon.
Merle Oberon.
Merle Oberon. Do you know that name?
No.
Doesn't
Never
she mean
heard.
anything to you?
I'm sorry.
That's
No.
extraordinary.
But when you're 86 years old, you will know.
I don't remember things now. It's impossible.
Yeah, no
that
kidding.
I can remember.
But you might remember Meryl Streep when you're 86 years old and you're
Wait,
I
isn't
doubt
it
it,
87 now?
Well, anyhow, this.
Yeah.
87 when you're...
And so you must have heard some of these stories. For instance, he once met a person, and this man said something. I would like to have a key holder, which could not open up, that I could not lose the keys, and I would like it to be so and so and so. And the man said, "You mean like this?" And he had it in his hand. But the thing for which he is famous in Italy is that supposedly there would be a blank linen.
Yes,
And
something comes to my mind about this.
But
Yeah.
lui è un
I
mago
will
degli anni
never,
40.
never-
come
And he
facciamo?
would
Paint
just
through.
paint with his eyes.
Yes.
But you know, maybe Yvonne is one of these guy in the 1940s.
Listen,
We don't remember.
If there was,
Of
if
course
there
you don't
was,
remember.
I
You
want
weren't
to
there.
tell you, if there was a person who was a skeptical, it was my husband. My brother-in-law, my husband's brother, met this guy because he had an antique store also in Torino, and my sister-in-law and my brother-in-law bought quite a few things from him. And so they became acquainted with him, and he was already becoming famous. And the professor of psychiatry at the hospital in Torino also knew about that. So they said, okay, they got together in my brother-in-law's house, and he did all sorts of strange things. He took a volume of Van Loon, La storia del mondo, or La storia della civiltà, and he said, he said, you just take any
So
book.
you go into the library next door and pick a book.
And my brother-in-law was a bibliographer. He had, lots of books. So they took this book by Van Loon, and they opened it. He was in another room, and then he came in, and he said, "All right, well, the first word is not the whole word. It's
Un articolo. No.
no, it's
Part.
It's the second part of
Ah,
of a
the
word.
word.
And then he almost verbatim repeated what was written. And then he said, now I need a piece of paper to draw. And he drew there was a
An
little
illustration.
drawing at the end. And, he did that. Then he did some card business. And in the meantime, Professor Maspis and my husband and another neuropsychiatrist, they were all there. They kept
Yeah.
on. So at the end, when he did the card things, he said my sister-in-law went to a store downstairs of where they lived to buy a pack of
New cards.
new cards, and the new cards have the ace of heart is the first card,
Mm-hmm.
And he said, when you open it, it's not going to be this. It's going to be such and such. And when they opened it, that's what it was.
Now I'm
And then
very
he did
curious
some
about this.
tricks. And again, they, and then he became mad. He became mad. So he said, all right, tell me a card. And he threw the cards in the air, and they came down, and only that card would hit the table. And he did this for half an hour, like crazy.
But that's not the scary story. The scary one I thought was the word volpe.
Well, the one con la Luisa.
No, with Nino.
Zanibelli.
With Nino.
Huh?
With Nino.
What was it?
That he said to, he was angry, and he said to Nino, okay, you get this new pack of cards. They got a new pack of cards wrapped in cellophane.
Yeah.
He said, now write a word on a sheet of paper and put it in your coat pocket. And he was angry at these people, and so he wrote the word wolf and put it in his pocket. And he said, okay, and he took the deck of cards and he slammed it down, and a card comes out, and he said, pick it up. He picked it up, and in my father's own handwriting was the word wolf written on the card.
Yes.
Whoa!
I
Wow,
remember
now we are very curious.
Isn't that pretty spooky?
Yeah, yeah.
Especially if you leave.
Tu lo sai adesso di chi parliamo?
No?
No, cioè mi ricordo che ho sentito
Ma deve
parlare,
essere
ma non lo so il
uno-
nome.
But
Non me
you
lo
had a
ricordo.
friend in Varigotti, a wealthy
Yes,
woman in Varigotti.
la Negretta, who was with him in come si chiama la chiesa degli ebrei?
In
La
una
sinagoga.
sinagoga.
She was with him in a synagogue, and he did something, and something came into his hands, just out of the air. And she didn't want to have anything to do ever with him again.
But she also said to him that she had lost a ring.
No, that is the Zanibelli. Zanibelli went to a store in Torino and looked at the purse drugs, and then he said, well, you know, if you come the day after tomorrow, I will be here at 12 o'clock, and I'm going to show you some very special ones that I have somewhere in the attic or whatnot. And that morning, Zeller called Luisa and said, listen, it's so beautiful today in Varigotti, why don't you come? So she took the car and she went to Varigotti. And she was at the Zeller's house. Now, there is a precedent. The precedent is that a year before that, in Rome, she was in a store and wanted to buy some nylon stockings. And she had a ring on, and she took the ring off not to spoil the silk. And, you know, and she tried these stockings, bought the stockings, and when she came home, she remembered, and she went back to the store, and the ring was, she never got the ring back, and the ring was the ring of her grandmother. It was a beautiful ring. Well, anyhow, a year later, she goes to Varigotti. She is in the house of her friends, and she said, I want a glass of water or something. She got up, and there was a gling, 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 and she looked on the floor, and there was her ring. And she looked at the time, and it was exactly the time where she was supposed to meet with them in Torino. And she became very upset. She said, "Oh my God, this is terrible. What is this?" So Mrs. Zeller said, "Well, what's going on?" So she said, "Well, I lost that ring a year ago, and it was gone." And so Dr. Zeller and Mrs. Zeller said, "Well, come on, he must have gotten stuck somewhere." And they looked everywhere to. Of course,
You look for
was not
some
stuck.
logical explanation.
Now there's a guy named
The
David.
funny thing is that he was a very devout
Copperfield.
Catholic.
Copperfield?
Blaine, who does
Somebody
the same
said,
things.
why don't you use this? Because he could have. But he said, no, that would be He was a very devout Catholic,
Great.
which is strange.
Well, once in a while. Yeah, to have this kind of thing.
Yeah.
But Nino also said that when they met with those three doctors and Giancarlo, that initially they challenged him to do things, and he said, I can't. Said, I can't just turn this on. These are things that happen to me. They're not things I do, they're things that happen to me.
I see, I see.
And then they got him angry, and the things started happening. It was like
I see.
invoking the Hulk.
Well, when Giancarlo died, Dinetta wrote to him because Dinetta was obsessed to know if he had suffered. You know, my brother-in-law died in the wheel of the Molino.
Crushed in a you know the story about like a
Tio Giancarlo.
not a windmill but a water wheel. It's like a 20-foot diameter wheel and a little creek that would run it, and it got stuck, and he jumped inside it to get it moving, and it started moving. He tried to step out of it, and he ended up getting
I
crushed by
don't
it.
think that he got. What they did is standing on the side and with one foot doing like this, but it was very slippery, and he fell in.
He was crushed by it.
And she wrote to him and asked him, had her husband, he never answered. He never wrote to her. Ma che non mi venga il nome, il colmo,
Poi però ce lo devi dire.
Vabbè,
Appena ti viene in mente,
Vogliono
chiama.
fare una ricerca di quella selvaggia.
Non so con quale.
Non lo so, un mago degli anni 40, che ne so.
Un
Cerchiamo.
illusionista.
And this was Torino.
Torinese.
He
Antiquario.
was from Torino? Who
nobody
knows?
really knew his. No, it was very mysterious, his origin.
I think that I'm going to sleep.
You want to sleep here? Oh no, I don't have a bed. No, I don't have a
No,
bed.
don't worry, don't leave me.
Not the light.
Bedtime stories.
Yeah.
Thank you for the bedtime stories,
You
Yvonne.
can keep going.
Let's go.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.